I heard my own father call me dead weight. Was the day I quietly sold my $725,000 house out from under him. He thought the call had ended when he started talking about me, about how I was a burden, useless, and only good for her money. What he didn't know was that my phone was still on the table, screen lit up, microphone wide open. I sat in the kitchen, listening to the man who raised me make plans for my life like I was some broken piece of furniture he was going to toss out. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just went quiet and started planning the kind of revenge that doesn't use fists or yelling, just signatures, real estate agents, and a cold goodbye. My name is Victoria. I'm 31, and up until a few months ago, I thought I was a good daughter. Not a perfect one. I have anxiety. I overthink texts. And I cry at stupid commercials, but I tried. After my mom died 3 years ago, I stepped in for my dad, David, in every way I could. I invited him to move into my house so he wouldn't be alone. I took time off work to help him with paperwork, doctor's appointments, and even stupid things like remembering his Netflix password. And when he started slipping little comments like, "Your mom would have handled this better," I swallowed the hurt and told myself, he's grieving. He doesn't mean it. That was my favorite lie. My house wasn't just a house either. It was the thing I was most proud of. A 2-story place with a small garden, big windows, and a kitchen my mom would have loved. I'd bought it after years of working late nights, saving every bonus, skipping vacations. Price tag? $980,000. I didn't grow up rich. I grew up clipping coupons with my mom at the dining table. So owning that house felt like I'd rewritten my own story. And I shared it with my dad. Because that's what you do with family, right? At least, that's what I thought. It was a Thursday afternoon when everything changed. I remember the exact moment, down to the weird smell of burnt toast in the kitchen and the way the sun hit the tile. I'd been on a call with my dad to ask if he wanted me to pick anything up on my way home from the grocery store. He'd been moody that week. Short answers, heavy sighs. But he was like that sometimes. Getting older is hard. He'd say so when I called. He sounded distracted. Yeah, get whatever, he muttered. I'll eat anything. Okay, I said, trying to sound upbeat. I'll grab some chicken and maybe make that casserole you like. Fine? Not thank you. Just fine. I ended the call, or I thought I did. I set my phone on the table and turned to the fridge, making a mental grocery list. After a few seconds, I realized I could still hear voices, muffled at first, then clearer. I frowned and looked down at my phone. The screen was still on. The timer was still counting. The call was still connected. I should have said, "Hey Dad, I think you didn't hang up." I should have. Instead, I froze. Something in his tone made my stomach twist. "I'm telling you, she's just dead weight," he was saying. My heart dropped. There was another voice in the background, female, sharp. I recognized it. Lisa, his girlfriend. The woman he'd started seeing not even a year after my mom died. "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. "She just clings." My dad snapped. "She acts like she's doing me some big favor, letting me stay here. Like she's some saint." I stared at the phone, my throat closing. "Isn't it her house?" Lisa said. "You told me it's worth almost $1 million. Yeah, 980 or something," he said. "You should see the paperwork. She thinks she's so smart. Always talking about my mortgage, my equity." He mocked my voice on that word equity like it was a joke. Lisa laughed. "Well, she is paying for you to live there for free." "That's not exactly nothing," my dad scoffed. "Please, she owes me. If it weren't for me, she wouldn't have a dime. I worked my ass off when she was a kid. Now she's acting like she's above me because she has a nice kitchen and some stupid balcony. She did buy the place on her own," Lisa said. He didn't like that. I could hear the annoyance in his voice. "Yeah, with some office job where she sits on her butt all day," he said. "She's not special. She's just there, dead weight, needy, always wanting my approval. Like she's still 10. I felt like I'd been slapped. Dead weight, that's what I was to him. The man whose approval I'd chased my entire life. "I'm just saying," Lisa went on. "If she's as easy to guilt as you say, maybe you should nudge her to put your name on the house. So at least if something happens, you're not out on the street." My heart started pounding. There was a pause. Then my dad said, "I've been working on it." I told her I'm worried about getting older and security. "I think she'll cave soon. She always does. She feels guilty about her mom dying. I can use that. The room started spinning. Use that. Use my guilt about my mom dying. Use me. There was a scraping sound, like a chair moving. And if she doesn't add you? Lisa asked. We'll figure something else out, he said. Honestly, I might just push her to sell so we can get a nicer place. Something in my name. We, not she, we. I barely recognize her when you talk like this, Lisa said, sounding amused. You make her sound like some stupid little child. That's all she is, he said. A scared kid with a mortgage. She needs me. I didn't remember sitting down, but suddenly I was in a chair, staring at the wall. My hands were shaking. My chest was tight. I heard myself whisper, hang up the phone, Victoria. But I didn't. I listened until their conversation drifted to other things. Weekend plans. A restaurant they wanted to try. When I finally ended the call, my thumb moved like it belonged to someone else. Then I sat there in silence as one sentence repeated in my head. She's just dead weight. I didn't confront him that night. I didn't storm into the living room screaming. How could you? He was sitting in his favorite armchair when I walked in, watching some crime show, a bowl of chips on his lap. Hey, kiddo, he said. You get the chicken? Yeah. I heard myself say. It's in the fridge. I'll cook tomorrow. He didn't look away from the TV. You're the best. I almost laughed. That was the thing. If you'd looked at us from the outside, we would have looked normal. A dad and daughter sharing a home. But I knew the truth now. To him. This house wasn't my home. It was his opportunity, and I was a stepping stone. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Every memory felt like it was being rewritten in my head. The time I gave him my old car when I upgraded. The time I paid off one of his credit cards as a gift. The time I canceled a weekend trip with my friend Emma because Dad didn't feel like being alone after some minor surgery. All things I did because I loved him. All things he apparently saw as proof that I could be manipulated. My mom's voice floated up from somewhere deep inside me. Don't let people make you small to make themselves feel big. Vicky. I realized I had been making myself small for years, shrinking my needs, stretching my patience, letting his moods control my life, and now I had heard it, raw and unfiltered. I wasn't his daughter. I was his plan, for money, for security, for comfort. That realization hurt more than anything, but under the hurt, something else started to grow. Anger, not explosive, table-flipping anger, cold, quiet, surgical anger, the kind of anger that sits very still and starts planning. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I made coffee. I made breakfast. I set a plate in front of my dad, just like always. Thanks, kiddo, he said through a mouthful of eggs. You're welcome, I said. My voice was calm. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I'd decided something in the middle of the night. I wasn't going to fight to keep his love. I was going to protect mine. And I was going to protect everything I had built. With or without him. After breakfast, I went to my room, closed the door, and opened my laptop. I emailed my real estate agent, Mark. I'd worked with him when I bought the place. Subject, thinking about selling within an hour. He replied, Hey Victoria, wow, that's big news. Are you sure? Your place has gone up in value. We could probably get a really good price. Want to talk numbers? Marky stared at his email for a long time. My hands hovered over the keys. Are you sure? That was the question. Was I sure I wanted to sell the home I loved to get away from the man who didn't love me the way a father should? I thought of my dad's voice on the phone. She's dead weight. I can use her guilt. My fingers began to move. Yes, I'm sure. Let's talk numbers. The next step was money. I wasn't stupid. I knew if I sold the house while my dad was living there, there'd be questions, drama, guilt. But I also knew something else. The house was entirely in my name. The mortgage, the deed, all of it. Every cent of the down payment had come from my account. Legally, he had no claim to it. Emotionally, though, that was the battlefield he fought on. So I didn't tell him. I played the role he expected of me. For the next few weeks, I was the same Victoria he knew, the one who asked about his day, cooked his meals, laughed at his stories. But while he was taking afternoon naps, I was meeting with Mark in coffee shops, signing documents, staging photos, and quietly packing little pieces of my life into boxes I labeled donate or keep. I started having my mail forwarded to a P.O. box I'd opened. I talked to a financial advisor, a woman named Caroline. about how to protect the money I'd get from the sale. So you're expecting around 980? She'd asked, scanning the estimate. Roughly, I said. That's a big move, she said, looking at me over her glasses. Are you sure you're ready to leave the home? No, I said honestly, but I'm ready to leave the situation. She nodded like she understood more than I was saying. We set up a trust. Not in my dad's name. Not in anyone's name but mine, with one beneficiary, my future. Travel, therapy, maybe a smaller condo closer to the city, maybe a tiny bookshop, cafe one day, things that were mine, things no one could call dead weight. It didn't take long for my dad to start pushing the house conversation again. One evening, as we sat in the living room, he muted the TV. Hey, can we talk about something serious for a sec? He asked. My heart beat a little faster, but my face stayed neutral. Sure. You know I'm not getting any younger, he began. And I've been thinking, it might be smart to put my name somewhere on the house paperwork, just for security. Like, if something happened to you, where would I go? He paused, giving me his best concerned father face, the same face he probably wore when he told Lisa he planned to use my guilt. I folded my hands in my lap. I get that you're worried, I said softly. Let me think about it, okay? He smiled, relieved. Of course. No rush. Just don't wait too long. Oh, I wasn't waiting too long, just long enough to make sure everything was signed. The house went on the market quietly. No sign in the yard. Mark listed it privately first, reaching out to his network. The photos looked so beautiful it hurt to look at them. My living room, bathed in warm light. The kitchen spotless. My bedroom serene. The caption described it as a thoughtfully maintained home with character and heart. Heart, funny word. Considering mine felt like it had been ripped out and dissected already. Within 2 weeks we had offers. Real offers. Above asking. When Mark called with the final number, I was in the car, parked outside my favorite park. Victoria, are you sitting down? He asked. I am, I said. We got $980,000. Clean offer. Cash. They want to close fast. I laughed, but it came out sounding like a sob. Fast sounds good. Are you sure? He asked again. I wiped my eyes. Yeah, I'm sure. Telling my dad was the part I dreaded the most, not because I thought he'd be hurt, but because I knew how much he'd show it as anger. He came into the kitchen one afternoon, yawning. Why are there boxes in the garage? My stomach flipped. I had planned for this, but that didn't make it easier. I need to talk to you, I said. He frowned. That's never good. I gestured to the table. Sit down? He sat, still in his old t-shirt and sweatpants. The man who thought he deserved a piece of my house just because he'd existed while I grew up. I sat across from him. I sold the house, I said. His reaction was instant. You what? He snapped, laughing like I was joking. I sold the house, I repeated calmly. The sale is closing soon. I'm moving out. His face went red. Are you insane? Why would you do that without talking to me? I held his gaze. It's my house, Dad. He slammed his hand on the table. I live here. Do you know how selfish this is? After everything I've done for you, you're just going to sell it and throw me out on the street? The shame tactic. Classic. I took a slow breath. You're not being thrown on the street. You have options. You can stay with Lisa, or look for a smaller place. I'll help you with a deposit if you need. He stared at me like I'd spoken another language. You're really doing this, he whispered. After everything, I agreed softly. There was a long, tense silence. Then he sneered. Is this because I asked you to put my name on the title? Is that it? You're that selfish that you couldn't even share? Something in me snapped, but not outwardly, inwardly. I leaned forward slightly. It's because I heard you, I said quietly. He frowned. What? The day I called about groceries, I said. You didn't hang up. I heard you talking to Lisa. His face went pale. I heard you call me dead weight, I went on. I heard you say you were going to use my guilt about Mom to pressure me into putting your name on this house. I heard every word. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. Victoria, you're overreacting, he said quickly. You misunderstood. You know how I am, I just talk. I didn't mean you meant it enough to make it a plan, I said. His jaw clenched. You're twisting this. No, I said, shaking my head. For once, I'm not twisting anything. I'm seeing it clearly. He tried a different tactic. You know I've always taken care of you. I paid for your school, your food, your roof, and I am grateful for that," I interrupted. "But that does not give you ownership of my life, or my house, or my guilt." Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "For years, I thought I was taking care of you because we were a team," I said. "Because we were family. But you've been looking at me like a resource. Something to use. Something to move around." He scoffed. "So what? You sell the house and run away? That's your big move?" I met his glare. "My big move," I said evenly, "is choosing myself, my peace, my future, and making sure the person who called me dead weight doesn't profit from the weight I carried to buy this place." His mouth trembled with anger. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe," I said, "but I'll regret staying even more." We didn't speak much in the days that followed. He shuffled around the house, slamming doors, muttering under his breath. He told Lisa some twisted version of the story, I'm sure. Because I heard him on the phone calling me ungrateful and dramatic, I let him, because I knew the truth. On the day of closing, I signed the final documents in Mark's office. The number popped up on the paperwork. Impossibly large. 9800000 $980,000. The funds transferred into the trust Caroline had helped me set up. I felt something loosen in my chest, not because of the money itself, though I won't lie. It felt surreal, but because this was proof that I could make big, terrifying decisions for myself, without my dad's approval, without his manipulation, without his voice in my head calling me dead weight. I moved into a small rental apartment across town. Nothing fancy. White walls, thin carpets, a tiny balcony that barely fit a chair, but it was mine, completely mine. And no one's mood stalking the hallway. No one slamming doors because dinner was 10 minutes late. No one sighing loudly until I asked, "What's wrong?" It was quiet. The first night, the silence felt heavy. I sat on the floor with a takeout box, wondering if I'd made a mistake. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Emma. My friend I'd canceled trips on for my dad's sake for years. "How's the new place?" "Proud of you, Vic." I took a picture of my half-unpacked living room and sent it. "It's small. And it's perfect," she replied with 3 heart emojis and 1 wine glass. "We're christening that place this weekend. I'm bringing cheap wine and expensive gossip." I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in weeks. My dad and I didn't cut contact completely. I didn't block his number or vanish. But things changed. The next time he called asking for money, I said, "I can help you find a budgeting tool, but I'm not paying your debts anymore." The silence on the other end of the line was enormous. "You've changed," he said finally. I looked around my tiny apartment, at the small stack of books by the window, at my half-burned candle, at my laptop, open to a list titled "Things I Want to Do Just for Me." "Yeah," I said quietly. "I have." He sighed. "Your mother would be disappointed, you know." For once, that old knife didn't sink into my chest. "No," I said, with a steady voice. "I think Mom would be proud that I stopped letting anyone even you call me dead weight." He didn't answer, and for the first time, I was okay with that. In the months that followed, I started to build a life that actually felt like mine. I went to therapy and talked about my mom, my dad, and that overheard phone call. I traveled for a weekend with Emma. And I didn't panic the entire time about whether my dad had taken his meds or eaten, because he was an adult, and I was allowed to be one too. I started writing again, something I'd stopped doing in the fog of grief and obligation. Little stories, half-finished chapters, scenes of women walking away from people who resented their strength. One day, while scrolling on my phone, I stumbled onto a channel full of revenge and storytime videos. Women telling their stories about standing up for themselves, leaving toxic families, choosing themselves. So here I am, adding mine, because my revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic in the way movies are. No screaming match in the rain, no slash tires, no public humiliation, just a woman who listened to a call that was never meant for her ears, and decided to stop living in a house built on disrespect. I sold my $980,000 home, not to flex, not to win, but to walk away before I became what he said I was, dead weight. Because here's the thing. Sometimes the heaviest weight you carry isn't the mortgage, or the bills, or the responsibility. It's the people who resent you for carrying it, and the most powerful revenge is putting it down. If you were in my place hearing a parent call you dead weight behind your back, what would you have done? Would you have stayed and tried to fix it, or packed your things and walked away like I did? Let me know in the comments, because I read every single one, if my story hit a little too close to home. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder. You are never dead weight. You are the reason the whole damn house stays standing.